All right, so welcome everyone to today's LinkedIn Live, where we're going to be exploring AI's constant evolution and specifically the very latest buzzword on the block, Agentic AI. Now, the potential that it offers in terms of being able to undertake work autonomously with little or no human direction is phenomenal. We've just done a global survey and we found that 29% of organizations are already claiming to have started their Agentic AI journey, moving towards more autonomous work. And a further 38% said they're planning to use it in the next 12 months. So it does, however, feel as if we've gone from no agentic to everything agentic in a very, very short period of time, because suddenly everything, including box standard chatbots, seem to be relabeled as agentic AI. And that's not to mention the very significant organization readiness required to support the successful adoption of technologies like this. So the real question at the moment is what is hype and what is reality? I'm Natalie Keightley, VP of Product Marketing at SS&C Blue Prism, and I'm delighted to be joined today by Jeremy Rossi, who is the CIO of Intelligent Automation and Analytics here at SS&C Blue Prism. And he's going to shed some light on Agentic AI, what it really is, and how organizations can adopt it in the most responsible and impactful way. So welcome, Jeremy.
Thank you very much for having me. It should be a fun conversation.
Excellent. I think it will be. So on that note of fun, let's start with the different interpretations of the definition. What in your mind is the definition of agentic, and what's real and what isn't real today?
And I think that's an important point to pull out is that it means so much and it's really ill-defined. And then it's redefined like 3 times since it's been badly defined on top of that. So I think of agentic as more of an in destination, a place we're going towards, where you have all of these features coming together into one, which is making decisions, building processes, and doing more. But I think that's the destination. That's not where we are. And that's where we're going, is to an agentic, as computers making more decisions, being in line. But we have a long way to go. And we have a lot to get done before we get to the agentic future as I see it. And what I mean by that is agentic is a very broad, big concept. It is a hard thing to do. And the technology, both in how to govern and bring it together and then work with it in predictable ways, isn't there yet either. So I'm gonna pause the conversation about just agentic and like that and talk about where are we on the spectrum of agentic? Where are we in that methodology to get to something where we're trusting them to make decisions, how they're going to be brought into the overall architecture, and talk about it in that way. And that is in destination, computers making more decisions, removing more people, and people are being enabled to do the most powerful things. And then where it is right now, and different levels of that, is it's being brought to bear with humans in the loop, where it's being used to augment them and bring more information into the human sphere and making them better. And that is a kind of agent. It's part of the agentic framework, but it's not the end destination. So what do I really think is, let's get there. Let's keep on working towards it, but let's define some steps between now and then. And I think that we need to have a lot more good conversations around how we're going to get there and what it means to have a good governed agentic future by having more tools that not limit us and control our abilities to control how we're using it and how it's being used.
Yeah, some really good points that you made there in terms of just the time it's going to take for organizations to get there. The fact that actually humans are still very much part of this, at least in the short to medium term. But you also mentioned something that's quite significant there, which was trust. And I think one of the things that a lot of organizations are grappling with right now is, when do you use it? And, do you use a drill to put a picture on a wall, or will a hammer do? And we're kind of at that point right now. It's for organizations, it's the overall readiness and where they are. So talk us through, where do you think the average organization is in terms of the overall readiness for this technology? And what are some of the barriers you're seeing in terms of its adoption?
Yeah, this is a hard question because I think the trust aspect is it, but it's not just trust, it's also guardrails and governance. It's the tools and the way you surround these things that are, how do I put it, gullible. They like to please. AI models are really good at looking and interacting with people, but they're also really good at giving them exactly what they ask for. And that's where that gullibility, that being convinced to do something, so that you have to have guardrails on them and you have to put barriers between them. And that's something I think, and SS&C thinks is vital to make the most use of that, is how do you understand what goes in is what comes out? And how do you make sure that you have the guardrails in place so that you can use these tools the most effective way? We're putting a lot of time and effort into exactly that. We want to consume as much of this technology space as we possibly can, but we want to do it in a way that is trusted and well governed. And that's what we're focusing on. How do we bring governance to the models? Well, we know how to detect statistical anomalies on outputs. We know that prompt injection is a real thing. Second and third layer prompt injection based on prompts being in the data sets that are being brought into the question. And there's just so many methods that you need to account for, and we're just on the cusp of learning about. There's a lot to do here. And I think that every organization needs to be focusing on trust so that they can make the most use of these tools. And that will come with a governance framework that makes sense.
And I think that governance piece, as you said, that framework is really critical, because it takes a long time for organizations to actually understand what governance is required with some of these new technologies. I think a lot of the proof of concepts that we've seen have been organizations learning what isn't going right, as well as what is going right, and some of the things that they need to put around it to make sure that they can get it even better next time around. So you talked earlier a little bit about that phasing, that this is a long-term journey. Talk a little bit about what you see that journey as being, and this sort of evolution as organizations step through it and take on board things like governance.
Well, I'll come back to the governments, but let me talk about like an evolution about how I take on injecting these tools, these new capabilities. Is that first you have to think differently about how you build them into your applications. So I'll use the example of a government website where you want to apply for a visa or something of that nature. And in the past, what that would do is you fill in a big form from top to bottom where you put your address, your home address, your history, your passport number, and then you upload photos of your passport and your driver's license. That is exactly the wrong way to do things in the AI-based future. You upload those documents first, so all those forms are pre-filled out. And then me, the human, verifies them. I confirm, and I have done something to confirm what the computer has learned to do with its AI technology. And by inverting it, I've now got a higher confidence in the technology. I have a framework by I can verify it. I have a human in the loop naturally. And by just changing the paradigm a little bit of how we do our workflows, suddenly we get a little, make user improvement. The person that's filling out the form doesn't feel like they're doing it 3 or 4 times. But we at this on the governance side, we get to learn how the AI makes mistakes. We get to add governance and trust so that at some point in time, we don't need to do the verification with the human. We just say, hey, here's what we detected, hit edit to fix it, so that they don't get the prompt. They don't get that because we're able to have the governance and tools that have verified over periods of time that it's gone really well. And that's what I would call very early stage, how to use and integrate AI into these workflows, into human in the loop kind of processes. But as that goes up and more becomes more complicated, they get more deeply embedded, we're going to start talking about different levels. And as you move up these levels, there's going to be more and more decisions put into the LLM where there won't be a person watching, or you'll have one person to 45 LLMs making decisions through, and you'll see the full response of that gigantic piece of work coming together, and one person will review it in total before it goes out to either loan request or some other idea out there. And that would be much further along. But when you get to that stage, you have to trust the human's going to be able to understand that, because that was 45 decisions made by an LLM. You got to know what went into it, how that prompt was created, how it didn't deviate, how the data didn't cause it to go start pulling in data from other customers, how this all happens. How do you do that? By adding controls, by adding those governance. And that's what, as you ramp up that complexity of the LLM, you have to start ramping up that complexity of the governance to map it. And so that's where I see we're going, is you start seeing the complexity of LLMs and their usage go up. You're going to see the governance go up probably faster, because in order to make those more complicated decisions, you need to have the governance ahead of time. So I tell everybody, we're only at L1. You already have human in the loop. Like with that original part of the story was, you have the person, you still need governance then, even though it's going to be verified. Why? Because that's what's going to set you up for that progression up the automation levels with LLMs and with governance.
So Jeremy, governance is often seen as one of those things that slows down innovation when it comes to technology. What are your views on that?
It can't be. I'm going to be really hard on this point. It has to be faster. They have to be ahead of the game. Business needs to make decisions as fast as they can to drive value into the market, to deliver the value to their shareholders, customers, wherever they can. And governance can't be the reason why you're not going to market. You need to be, governance in the programs around AI have to be delivering value now, adopting technologies faster than their business wants so that they can meet them when they need it. The rate of change in AI is so fast and so high that the governance and trust has to be there just as fast, if not before. So I believe that this is something we really need to push harder on, is more governance, more trust, and those teams need to be faster than the customers they're trying to service. They need to be a step ahead. They need to be reading all the white papers that come out. They need to be thinking about not just the security, but what technology is going to come down the pipe and how to enable that. Because if they're not ahead of it, they won't be there, and the business will miss the opportunities. And that's just not something that we should allow to happen.
So interesting. If you get governance right, governance can actually speed up your innovation process rather than slow it down. So that balancing act of making sure you know exactly what is happening, you've got the right guardrails in place, you've got the right structure in place, actually enables organizations to go even faster with this technology.
100%. And in fact, so I did a long stint in security, and it was also true in security. The same thing as governance is, the faster you are, the earlier you are, the better you're able to enable the business to make the decisions quicker. This is the same play over and over again. Make sure you're ahead of your customer, which in this case is business. So be faster than them so that they can get to market faster. Because then you're not a blocker. You're no longer slowing them down. You're enabling them to have high confidence and high trust in the tools they bring to the market.
Yeah, I think addressing that sort of governance lag by getting ahead of it, so it's not the lag, but actually the governance is kind of preempting anything that comes before. That whole concept of applied innovation, where you're innovating, but you're learning and constantly evolving the things that are going to make that innovation work properly is a key concept here. So just talk briefly through some of the things that we're doing at SS&C that are enabling some of that governance that's required.
Yeah, so we're at SS&C. I've built a process in a program called Tarbos. And Tarbos is our governance framework. It's also our it's our API towards all of our models and AI services. And so by putting Tarbos between the applications or users and these models, it means that we have a governance model in the beginning, from beginning to end. We have a monitoring model from beginning to end, and we can have a consolidated view of what is happening. And so by doing this across all of our organizations, we can compound our knowledge and our learning and governance and reliability for all of our business units, while also compounding our ability to action them, so that when new injection models or new prompts, methods for getting around prompt injection protections come about, we can make those available to everybody immediately and fast in a really quick pace. So that's where we're focusing, is this technology. By having Tarbos in the middle of every connection to an LLM or to any AI model, whatever comes next, allows us to bring all these governance things to bear quickly, accurately, in meeting our audit requirements. But also there's a secondary benefit, and this is the one that it's not talking about. It means that we can use any technology that comes up as fast as possible, because it's disconnected, you want like a new model comes out that does LLMs 1,000 times better for cheaper. I can migrate to that independent of re-architecting my applications, re-architecting the integrations. I only change what model they request at the API layer in Tarbos. And that means we can adopt all of these technologies fast without ever having to compromise on where is governance being played, how is auditability being used, and make sure that it meets all of our corporate requirements and our customer requirements.
Awesome. So it's kind of that wrapper protecting what's coming in, making sure that's relevant, making sure what comes out is appropriate, relevant, secure, etc., and being able to do that across any of these models, which incredibly powerful. And of course, we're using this technology ourselves, aren't we? Yep. So this is something that's integral to the SS&C technology stack that's powering many of our customers' services across multiple regulated industries. And this whole concept of the SS&C Innovation Lab to make sure that this technology is appropriate, that it is tested out, that actually the development of these types of technologies are happening in lockstep with a business, a real world application of them is core to what we're doing. So Jeremy, in 30 seconds, top tips you would give organizations as they go on their journey to agentic AI?
It's an unbelievably powerful tool. Use it wisely, but start now and start your governance program now. Waiting won't work. It moves too fast, and you need to be familiar, useful, and build it into your programs today. And that goes for both the technology that's LLMs or whatever is next in the AI, but also the governance. Is start now, use it now, and abstract it accurately so that you know how to move and meet where the technology is going. I'm going to say AI is probably one of the fastest moving technology changes right now I've ever seen in technology over 25 years, and it's gotten faster and faster over time. You need to have all your ducks in a row around governance controls now, not in 3 months, not in 6 months, but today.
Brilliant. Some great advice there, Jeremy. Thank you so much. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Great. I'd love to talk anytime. Thank you.